Oh, thank you for joining me today. Well, this is the Friday, February 3rd edition of our video devotionals. And thank you so much for joining us today. And we call this Faithful Friday. And God certainly is faithful to us. Let's be faithful to Him. It is the end of another work week and school week. And now the weekend is upon us. And Sunday, hopefully you can do what you need to do, what you want to do, or nothing at all. Maybe just rest up. And then Sunday, of course, be in church and support and serve as best you can there in your local church. And so we're going to jump into things pretty quick here today. And we're reading from our Today books on this date, February the 3rd. Here's some events that happened. It says in 1809, the birthday of Felix Mendelssohn. He's known for his music. 1809, the territory of Illinois was created. It's called the Land of Lincoln. And Abraham Lincoln left Springfield, Illinois to become the president of the United States in his day. He wasn't born in Illinois, but he certainly was, I think, raised there. Then 1811, Horace Greeley was born, and in 1924, almost 100 years ago, President Woodrow Wilson died. So these are the things that happened around this on this date in history. All right, now we go to the Bible, and we're reading through the Bible in 1 year's time. My reading today was from Leviticus 7 and 8. We're going to look at the very last verse of chapter 8. So right before we do that, thank you all who watch the videos. We appreciate you as these videos get uploaded to YouTube. Some of you watch it directly from YouTube. Others, this link is sent to Facebook and Twitter, and we've got listeners from both social platforms there. Appreciate all of you. If you want to share it and to kind of spread the word, we'd be glad to do that. As if you've watched these any length of time or even one time, these are very centrally biblically centered devotions, and we want to try to keep them that way. And that way, I know I'm not erring too far. I know I add my 10 cents or 2 cents or 5 cents worth, whatever you want to call it. But at any rate, we try to follow exactly what we think God is intending for us to see from these passages that we read to you. All right, so Leviticus 8:36. Before we do that, we know that thus far, if you're reading through Leviticus, very heavy on the offerings, the sacrifices, and you've got all of those that are occurring. They're very descriptive how they're supposed to be done, the purposes, and all of that. And it says right here in Leviticus 8:36, so Aaron and his sons did all things which the Lord commanded by the hand of Moses. So here's what jumped out at me. Of course, we know that God, the Lord, gives the directions to Moses. Moses in turn gives the directions and all of that to the people. We know in this case, Aaron and his sons are listed here. And when it comes to these sacrifices, we of course know that they're pretty much the primary ones who get these instructions. So here's what has jumped out at me today. As I look at it, I know that Aaron and Moses were brothers. And in fact, Aaron was the oldest of the brothers. When I say oldest, between Moses and Aaron, Aaron was 3 years older than Moses. And here's a thought that came to me as I thought about that. I said, here is Aaron. He's the older brother, and he's serving under his brother, Moses. And I think it's always pleasing to know when you hear about relatives and family members who serve under another family member, and especially if that family member was someone who was younger or someone was in authority over that person. Let me give you an example. I'm going to give you some examples from my family, and they won't mind me using their names. I normally don't use names. I try to keep this fairly generic so that anybody and everybody that listens to this won't think this is just one-sided to my church or to my family or to whoever. So let me give an example here. My mother served under her brother, my uncle, as her pastor was my uncle, her brother, and for years. And so as I'm thinking, I wonder if my mother felt like she missed something because as she looks up there and she says, well, there's my brother. And but I don't think so. My mother loved preachers and she loved good preaching. My Uncle Barry has just resigned from the pastorate. He's not resigned from the ministry. He's actually staying very, very busy serving the Lord, preaching in all different places and will. But, here he was her pastor and a great pastor, and she would often just ooh and ah over the sermons, and she was being very sincere about it. But see, that was her brother. My Aunt Janet, she watches this. She'll hear this, and I'm bragging on her. She sat under her brother, and he was her pastor. And she did that not with, she didn't sit there and go, well, that's my brother, and I don't get so much out of it because that's my brother. I don't believe that. And then, of course, my grandfather and grandmother sat under their sons' leadership. My grandfather Gray and my grandmother Ruby sat there, and their pastor was their son. And then, of course, my uncle has had his children sit there under his leadership. And they served faithfully, they served joyfully. And I think that's just a wonderful thing. Let me also say this, in my case and in all pastors' cases, my wife Christy sits under my leadership, and I'm her pastor. And sometimes I think, I hope she's not or feels like she's missing something, because her husband, who she knows very well, she knows my strength, and she certainly knows my weaknesses. We spend much time together, and we love each other as husband and wife, and yet I'm her pastor. I'm always not amazed, but I'm always pleased when I hear a pastor's wife bragging on their pastor, which is their husband. And, they don't have to do that. They could say that just to be, I guess, say, well, what else am I going to say? And yet I believe, in the case of my wife, that I believe she feels like she has a pastor. I don't think she feels like she's robbed of a pastor simply because her pastor is her husband. And so I think that's wonderful. God knew that would be the case in situations like that. And there are times when there's family members, they go to different churches not because they're at odds with their family, but because it is their family. And I could see that. But I also think on the other side of that is the fact that you've got people who serve, and they serve with everything they've got, and they're not missing anything, because in some cases it might be the son or a brother, somebody, a relative of some sort, who serves, and they serve, and they do it because they know that God is speaking to them, and God uses them, and thus can speak to them even if it is family or a husband and wife situation. So I hope that helps you, and you may serve in a situation like that. If you do, then I think it's great that you do, and I don't think you're missing anything when it comes to that family dynamic there. So we're going to stop there. Again, I hope you have a great Friday today. This Friday and Saturday we call the weekend, and Sunday, and hopefully you're going to be healthy, or you're getting better, and be safe. And we'll see you on Monday, Lord willing, as we continue through this book of Leviticus. Have a great day.